The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
This is my kind of town. Chicago is my kind of town. Chicago is my kind of people too. People who smile at you and time I roam Chicago.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, Star Cable, and our growing family of broadcast affiliates right across Canada, the United States, the Caribbean, Central America, South America, the Pacific Rim, Asia, India, Africa, and Europe. Worldwide toll-free 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Deirdre Marie Capone. Now, that name rings a bell, doesn't it? Well, I'll tell you. She wrote a fascinating book entitled Uncle Al Capone. And, if you Google Al Capone, you'll get over 4 million hits. All over the U.S. store sell Al Capone coffee mugs, spaghetti sauce, cigars, T-shirts, killer mints, and so on. Now, when added to the endless stream of books, movies, and TV shows such as Boardwalk Empire that come out every year after year, it seems that, for good or bad, Al Capone is forever part of American history and folklore. Well, our guest this hour is Deirdre Marie Capone, and she's the author of a fascinating book entitled Uncle Al Capone, and her website is www.unclealcapone.com. And Deirdre, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you, Rob. Happy to be here.
So, Deirdre, exactly how are you related to the infamous Al Capone?
I am a member of his core family. Al Capone was my grand uncle. My grandfather, Ralph Capone, was Al's oldest brother and business partner. I actually oversee and I take care of the Capone family gravesite in Illinois, and there is a grave waiting there for me. So I am part of the core family. I lived with him. I saw him cry, I saw him sleep, I saw him laugh and eat. I am a part of that family.
You know, Deirdre, your publicist was kind enough to send us a copy of Uncle Al Capone, and looking at his picture that is on the front page, you know what, I don't know who looks like who. Does Robert De Niro look like Al Capone, or does Al Capone look like Robert De Niro?
Well, I wanted to put that picture on the front of my book because most people have never seen Al Capone without a big white fedora and a big stogie in his mouth. But that picture of him looking down at me is the way that I knew him. Now, if you look in his pocket, there are 3 cigars in his pocket.
Yeah.
And if you look on the inside, on the second page, you will see a picture that's taken at the same time of Al with me. And I've got his straw hat on, and I've got his cigar in my mouth.
You know, when you look at the picture of your uncle Al Capone and the movie, The Untouchables, the TV series, The Untouchables with Robert Stack, you know, your uncle looks like one heck of a nice guy.
You know, I'm not going to try to change anybody's perception about Al Capone, but I do want to at least inform, educate, and enlighten people. Of all the other 100 books that have been written about Al Capone, they were written by authors, some good, some not so good, but they never knew him, and they did all their research by going back and reading old newspaper articles. And, of course, we know how accurate newspapers usually are.
Deirdre, I hate to stop you, dear, but I've got to take my commercial break for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Exo Nation, Deirdre Capone is my special guest. Deirdre Marie Capone. She's the author of Uncle Al Capone, The Untold Story from Inside His Family. www.unclealcapone.com is the website. And Deirdre and I will be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break talking about Al Capone. You know, I've always said there's 3 sides to a story. His side, her side, and the truth. The truth prevails here in the X Zone. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go away.
Chicago is
Daddy was a cop on the east side of Chicago, back in the USA, back in the bad old days. In the heat of a summer night, in the land of the dollar bill, when the town of Chicago died, and they talk about it still. When a man named Al Capone tried to make that town his own, and he called his gang to war with the forces of the law. I heard my mama cry, I heard her pray the night Chicago died.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My guest this hour is Deirdre Marie Capone. She is the niece of Al Capone. She's also the author of a fascinating new book that tells you an inside story. And the name of the book is Uncle Al Capone, The Untold Story from Inside His Family. And it's available, as well as much more information, at www.unclealcapone.com. Deirdre, I was wondering if you could tell us about your Uncle Al Capone that many of his biographers couldn't.
Oh, there's so many things. You know, I started to say in the first segment, you know, that no other author that wrote a book about Al Capone or any of his family or his outfit actually knew him. And, of course, every author wants to put their spin on things, and they literally put words into my family's mouth that, you know, just are so unfair. So I just wanted an opportunity to tell about the person I knew. The Al Capone I knew was a father, was a son, a brother, an uncle. He was a husband. He was a provider, a very kind and giving man. I learned, you know, to be benevolent from the Capone family. I learned to be a patriot from the Capone family. They immigrated here, you know, to America for the promise that was here. There were gangs that ran Italy, you know, before they left there, and they knew that those kinds of things do not succeed. So they came over here, and when they did, the Italians were the low people on the totem pole. You know, the teachers at school didn't like them. They called them greasy. They said they were smelly. They were dumb. You know, never, you know, would succeed. So what chance did they have to be a lawyer, a businessman, or a doctor? They didn't. But they were scruffy. They were tough. They were smart. And they found an opportunity. Now, something happened to my uncle in New York, and I won't go into it. publicly, and I didn't put it in the book, but I do know the reason why he left New York and went to Chicago with his wife and his newborn son. Johnny Torrio said he could come and gave him an opportunity to get into a business. Now, America, in their extreme intelligence, decided to prohibit, outlaw alcohol. And the people in the United States wanted alcohol. Like my uncle told me, Deirdre, when I serve, alcohol, it's called bootlegging. But when the people on North Shore serve it, it's called hospitality.
Wow.
So what Johnny Torrio's outfit tried to do is find a good supply of alcohol, high-quality alcohol. And, you up in Canada benefited a great deal. I mean, he brought lots of jobs into Canada.
He sure did. He sure did. And, that's because we know how to make our beer, and we certainly know how to make our whiskey.
Absolutely. Then some of the finest quality of beer and whiskey came from there. He didn't make it here.
No,
he
he
had
didn't.
no, stills or, breweries here. He purchased it all from Canada and from the Bahamas. He got his scotch and things through the Bahamas. So anyway, he set up this business. His business consisted of three things. It was gambling, alcohol, and prostitution. All three of those things are legal today somewhere, but that's all that they were involved in, and they were things that people wanted. My uncle has been tied to extortion. I make a promise to everybody listening, he was never involved in extortion. Extortion was done by the Black Handers. The Black Handers were all Sicilian. Al Capone was never involved with the mafia. He has been accused of that. The mafia was all Sicilian. You needed to be 100% Sicilian to be a part of it. He could not be part of any of those things. He had a very small business. He had a section of Chicago on the south and west side where he supplied the speakeasies and the liquor sellers with high-quality beer and alcohol. He had gambling, off-track wire betting. He had cards. He had little casinos, and he had houses of prostitution. That's it. And I will promise everybody there was no innocent person, no child, and no woman who was ever harmed in his business.
Let me ask you this, Deirdre. Why is it then, we look at the history that you've just talked to us about, and really nothing much has changed, and yet, Al Capone, for some reason, has a bad rap. Now, who brought that bad rap upon Al Capone? Was it Elliot Ness and the Untouchables? Was it the ATF? Was it the IRS? Why did Al Capone suffer the full weight of the United States government?
I'll give you a very simple reason. Number one, Al Capone and his brother Ralph Capone, my grandfather, got into a very powerful position. They were amassing large amounts of money, mainly cash. And they were both invited to become part of this organization called the Bilateral Commission. The Bilateral Commission was a group of people who were setting up central banks in various countries, and they also established the Federal Reserve here in the United States of America. These central banks and the Federal Reserve would actually print currency for the country, and the countries themselves, the people in those countries, would borrow the money from the central bank or the Federal Reserve, and the central bank's Federal Reserve would then get interest on the money that was borrowed. My grandfather did not like that whole thing. He saw too many problems with that, and he decided that they would not be part of it. As a matter of fact, they publicly kind of turned it down and pointed out the bad things about it. So that was one thing. Then he got to be very powerful, and he was Italian. Italians weren't supposed to rise to that point of power. So then all of a sudden, there was this media blitz that would be going on, and Al Capone was accused of this, and Al Capone was accused of this, and he was set up. He did not partake. No part of him or any of his people were involved in the Valentine's Day massacre, but it was set up to make it look like it was him. At one point, Al Capone said, you guys would accuse me of the Chicago fire if you could. So he was set up, and it was mainly because he was Italian.
Now, I understand, and I believe that your uncle was very charismatic, and he was well liked by the media of the time.
Correct.
This must have pulled the chain of the government officials as well as the municipal officials to no end, knowing that, basically Al Capone had the ear of the media.
He did, and there is a book that just recently came out and was written by a man who I now call a friend of mine, and his name is Jonathan Ike, and the name of his book is Get Capone, and that's exactly what it was all about. The United States government wanted Capone gone, and they started this whole thing. The only thing they got him on, Rob, was income tax evasion.
Yeah.
They got my grandfather for the same amount of money for the same years as Al. My grandfather served 3 years in the federal penitentiary. Al Capone was sentenced to 11. Since that time, he was retried twice, once in 1991 by the American Bar Association, and then up in Minnesota in February of this year. They had real judges, real jury. He was found not guilty on all counts of income tax evasion.
I've got to tell you something. After reading your book and after doing some research, Al Capone should run the U.S. government.
I know he should. I wish he could come back.
Yeah.
I wish we could find somebody like that.
Because he truly understood the economy of the time, but most of all, he understood the people.
Yeah. The people loved him. They
Yes.
called him Santa Claus. In one of the pictures in my book, I'm sitting on a lap of Santa Claus, but that's really Al Capone dressed up as Santa Claus.
That's on page 169.
Yep, that was him. He and my grandfather set up the first soup kitchens in the United States of America after the crash of 29. They fed people. And I had recently a policeman in the city of Cicero whose grandfather was a police lieutenant at the time that Al Capone, was in residence. And he said twice a week on the back steps of the station, there would be boxes of food there for the policemen to take home to their families. Twice a week.
Unbelievable. This is why we're so happy you're with us tonight. To tell the other side of the story, because as I said as we were going to the break, there's always three sides to the story: his side, her side, and the truth. And I'm so happy you're here tonight to share with us the truth about your uncle Al Capone. Deirdre, you and I have to take a commercial break with the news. Please stand by.
Will do. Thanks.
XO Nation, our very special guest this hour is Deirdre Marie Capone. We're talking about the book that she wrote about her uncle, Al Capone. The name of the book is Uncle Al Capone, The Untold Story from Inside His Family. And her website is www.unclealcapone.com. And Deirdre and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
Of a summer night in the land of the dollar bill.
You're listening to the X-Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, and Star Cable. Our toll-free telephone number worldwide is 1-800-610-7035. Our email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com.
I believe it's meant to be, darling. I want you.
Come on, oh, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, oh, baby, don't you wanna go back to that same old place, sweet home, Chicago. Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Howdy, hey, baby, don't you wanna go back to that same old place, a sweet home, Chicago? Well, what I want is 6 and 2 is 8. Come on, baby, don't you make me laugh.
And welcome back, everyone. Deirdre Marie Capone is our special guest this hour. She is the author of Uncle Al Capone, The Untold Story from Inside His Family. Her website is www.unclealcapone.com. Deirdre, our listeners have probably seen the Untouchables, the movie with Robert De Niro, and I'm sure that many of our more seasoned listeners would remember the TV series with Robert Stack as Elliot Ness. And I was wondering, Deirdre, did anyone from the production company of the Untouchables movie, that had such greats in it as Kevin Costner, Sean Connery, along with Robert De Niro, actually contact you to see what you could actually lend to the movie when it came to the portrayal of Al Capone by Robert De Niro, or did they just do it on their own?
Well, at that point in our time, people didn't know how to get in touch with me.
I see.
I really hid who I was. My children didn't even know their heritage until they were teenagers. Being born Deirdre Marie Capone and being raised in Chicago with that name brought a lot of heartbreak, heartache, and just terrible things happened. When my husband had a chance to start a business in 1972, we moved out of Chicago, and my wings literally spread. I've done things that most women have never accomplished. But then along the way, it was my children that begged me to write this book. Since I've, made myself known to people, I've, put the past behind me and said, I am who I am.
Right.
So I'm just going to let the world know who I am. People have come out and have told me their grandfather worked for my uncle or my grandfather. This woman used to clean for him, and this, I've had black entertainers that have gotten in touch with me, and they said their career was a result of my family.
No, I understand that your uncle, played a major part in the careers of Louis Armstrong and Nat King Cole.
Correct. As a matter of fact, Nat King Cole played the night that one of my cousins got married, and my grandfather took me backstage, and Nat King Cole thanked him.
Oh, my gosh.
He wouldn't have had the career that he had without the Capones. There was a man in New York called Oni Madden who started the Cotton Club in Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
Oni was a very good personal friend of my grandfather. So my grandfather opened up a cotton club in Chicago, and it did the same thing. Although my grandfather used to have to give these entertainers bodyguards to get them out of the west side of Chicago downtown. Otherwise, they probably would have gotten beat up.
During the commercial break with the news, you and I were talking about your uncle, and I asked you, why he didn't run for the mayor of Chicago, then governor, and then president. Because as I said during the first or second segment, I think he would have made a great president. And you told me that this was part of his plan to become the mayor of Chicago.
It was. He wanted to. He was planning to run for mayor of Chicago, but there were business people there that just wouldn't sit still for it. Number one, he was Italian. Number two, he was Catholic. It was much like what John Fitzgerald Kennedy had to go through in the 60s. I mean, there was much controversy about him because he was Catholic, and how could we have a Catholic as a president of the United States? So there was a lot of discrimination against Italians back in the 20s, and that's what started this very, dedicated effort by certain people to actually get rid of Al Capone. And they did a very good job. They sentenced him to 11 years.
My Lord. How did his time in Alcatraz change your uncle?
Well, when he got out of Alcatraz, my mother was pregnant with me. And she said that they had a big party at my grandfather's house in Cicero for him. And Al Capone would come there, and he would go up to his sister and say, "Who are you?"
Oh.
And then he would go up to his brother, and "Who are you?" And he couldn't talk above a whisper. He would go to the bathroom, not close the door. He was just not, he was very disoriented. And so they took him to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, Maryland, to try to leach the poisons out of his body. While he was still in Alcatraz, they got in touch with my grandfather and said that they had a new treatment for syphilis, and they wanted to try it out on Al Capone. Now, nobody ever dies of syphilis, and everybody in the United States probably had syphilis or gonorrhea during the 20s. I mean, my mother had it, and it was arrested and contained, but she had it, and she got dementia before she died, and they tested her, and of course it was in her bloodstream. But they convinced my grandfather to try this. We found out what it was is they were injecting him with mercury.
Oh, Lord.
Yes. So, yes, it did change him, Rob.
That's just throwing me for a loop because, when we, and I'm talking about society here, take care and control of someone, whether it's in a hospital or whether it's in a institutionalized setting that is run by the government or even in the prison system, that does not give them the right, in my opinion, to treat anyone less than a human.
Well, and right after this was in 1939, and right after this, there was an experiment that was done by a manufacturer, and it was endorsed by the United States government. And they were injecting people, mainly in Guatemala, with, first of all, they would give them penicillin, and then they would inject them with syphilis.
Oh, Lord.
To see if the penicillin would prevent syphilis. It did not. There were many, and I've got the evidence for that, there were many, many people that died from syphilis because they didn't have a cure for it. But those kinds of things were happening, and that's another thing that I'd love society to know. And I think that if they're educated and enlightened, that same thing will never happen again.
What is your most vivid memory of your uncle, Al Capone?
I have two, but the most vivid one was I was over at the Capone house, and I was picking dandelions. My grandmother, Al's mother, really believed that food was medicine, and she would just preach that into us. And in the spring, she would make dandelion soup, dandelion salad, because dandelions actually leached the impurities from your body. And, during those days, we heated our houses during winter with coal. And, of course, the coal dust would get into the system. So I was over there helping her pick dandelions, and Al was there, as was me, and it was a beautiful spring day, and I wanted to climb an apple tree. And she said, "Okay, go ahead and climb it." Well, my foot slipped, and I fell back on my back, and I had the wind knocked out of me.
gosh.
It was the very first time that ever happened to me. I think I was 4 years old at the time. And it just startled me. And he came over, and he picked me up, and he threw me over his shoulder, and I could still remember how his body felt. I mean, it was just so solid and strong. And he just flipped me over his shoulder, and he started rubbing my back until I finally caught my breath. Then he took me upstairs to his quarters. He lived on the second floor, and he taught me to play the mandolin and taught me a lullaby, an Italian lullaby that I sang to my children when they were little.
Can you share that lullaby with us?
It's Shababa, Chihuahua, Shamama, in Kelowna, Kukalagumba. Shababa, Shamama, Chihuahua, my bambino, go to sleep.
Oh, wow. How did your Uncle Al influence your life?
I saw the discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the bias. I saw the untruths, and especially when he died. He died on my 7th birthday, January 25th, 1947, so now people know I'm 71 years old.
God bless you.
Thank you. And all the allegations that they attributed to Al Capone or my grandfather or the outfit was again printed everywhere in the world. And so my family needed something joyous to look forward to. I'm a Catholic, and Catholics make their first communion when they're in 2nd grade, 7 years old. So they planned for it. They had a big picnic. They outfitted me and everything. Well, back then there was local editions of the big papers in the cities in the United States. And on Monday, 2 of the papers printed that the 2nd graders at St. Philip Neri made their first communion, and Deirdre Capone, with the entire Capone family in attendance, made hers. Well, in order to protect me, my family, when they entered me in school, used my father's middle name as my last name. So they all knew me as Deirdre Gabriel. But how many Deirdres do you think were at St. Philip Neri in 47, let alone in Chicago?
Not many.
There was one.
Yeah.
So I was outed. 2 weeks later, everybody in my 2nd grade class except me was invited to this girl's birthday party. And that's when it started. It just, the bias, the sins of the father. I mean, it was difficult. So how he influenced my life, I think, was negatively for most of my life, because I was discriminated against.
I also understand that your Uncle Al had a plan to buy the Chicago Cubs.
He saw the writing on the wall. He knew that Prohibition was unfair, that the people wanted it reversed. So he started to look around for other businesses to get into. And one was, he loved baseball. And so he had a plan to buy the Chicago Cubs. He wanted to bring Babe Ruth from the Yankees at that time. He left the Red Sox. He was with the Yankees. He wanted to bring him in as player manager.
Wow.
And there was a black pitcher in the United States called Satchel Paige, and he played for the Crawfords, which was an all-black team. He was going to bring him up to play baseball. He would have been the first African-American to play Major League Baseball in the United States.
I was in Chicago about 20-some-odd years ago now. And I remember having a beer across the street from Wrigley Field. And I'll tell you something. Chicago is a city that holds on to its roots. It holds on to its history very strongly. And I was talking to the bartender, and he was telling me the history of Chicago. And to his credit, to the bartender's credit, he never mentioned the negativity. And there's a lot of people in Chicago that I'm sure would like to hear this story, the story that you wrote about your Uncle Al Capone, because it sheds an entire new light onto the so-called historically correct version that people have been hearing for so many years.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, Chicago was ashamed of Al Capone. And also, the Italian community was ashamed of Al Capone because of the negative aspects that were reported about him. But if people really knew, the Al Capone that I knew, just think, he was the first Italian-American. He was conceived in America, so he was an American. And he would tell people, I'm not Italian, I'm 100% American. So he was the first very upscale, wealthy Italian. And so I think the Italian community could look at him and say, if he could do it, I
That's
could do
right.
it.
He was actually an inspiration for many Italians as well as many other people in Chicago.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I want to do.
Well, you know what? I've had the opportunity of reading your book, and I agree that you are going to do it through this book. It's a well-done book. It's an easy book to read. It's not one of these books that you get tired of reading after 10 or 15 minutes. And you see a side of history that has been hidden because this side of history, the side that you're telling, doesn't serve the purposes of people who really wouldn't want this information to get out. And I'm so happy that you're with us and that we're able to help you get the true story out of your uncle, Al Capone.
Thank you.
Stand by, Deirdre. You and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be back shortly. Exo Nation, Deirdre Marie Capone is my very special guest this hour. We're talking about the new book that she has out entitled Uncle Al Capone, The Untold Story from Inside His Family. Her website, www.unclealcapone.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Oh, baby, don't you wanna go back to that same old place, sweet home, Chicago? Come on.
Waiting for the break of day, searching for something to say, flashing lights against the sky, giving up, I close my eyes, sitting cross-legged on the floor.
Welcome back, everyone. That, of course, is Chicago's 25 or 6 to 4. We've also played The Night Chicago Died, My Kind of Town, Chicago by the one and only Frank Sinatra this hour. Our guest, Deirdre Marie Capone. She is the author of a fascinating book that shines a new light on someone who the media, the law enforcement agencies, the government painted with a very dark brush, and that is, of course, Al Capone. She's the author of Uncle Al Capone. Her website is www.alcapone.com. And if you'd like to contact Deirdre, she's given us an 800 number to give out. 855 Al Capone. That's toll free. 855 Al Capone. And once again, her website is unclealcapone.com. And Deirdre, first of all, I want to thank you so much for joining us. And,
Thank you, Rob.
I read the book. I've had the pleasure of talking to you. It's giving a whole new way of looking at what we thought was the truth.
Correct.
Do you think that your uncle will ever be vindicated?
I hope so. I mean, I have kind of a wish, it's like a wish upon a star. But my wish would be that I could get him pardoned.
the fact that he was arrested for, he was in prison for income tax evasion. Whatever happened to the millions that he had stashed away?
He put them in safety deposit boxes. He had a lot of connections in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't trust the banks in America at
Smart
all.
man.
So he put all his cash, and he only dealt in cash. He thought the most he would get in prison was 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave enough money to his mother and to his wife to take care of all their needs for at least 5 years. And then he put the rest in safety deposit boxes, took the keys and the locations of the boxes, and hid it somewhere. We never did find the keys, although when I was a little girl, I do remember a chain of keys at my grandfather's house. I don't know if that was it or not. But at the time, they could not find it. I believe that the money financed Baptista's overthrow of the Cuban government. You know, the banks after the 5 years would try to find the owners of the safety deposit boxes, and of course they were all in assumed names, and they couldn't. And when they opened it up, there was all this American cash. I mean, I don't think they're going to try very hard to find the owner.
Deirdre, you and I have to say so long for now, but I do want to thank you. Congratulations on a fascinating book, and I hope that I have the pleasure of talking to you again here in the X Zone.
I would love that. Thanks, Rob. I'd love to come back.
You take care of yourself now. Deirdre Marie Capone has been my guest this hour, X Zone Nation. Her website, unclealcapone.com. She's the author of Uncle Al. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as the X Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.